How's that going? It is? Okay.
everyone, and welcome to our very first World Hijab Day celebration. My name is Ali, and I'm the Women of Color Allegiance Vice President. Just a couple quick announcements before we get into everything. Please feel free to scan the QR codes up here or on your tables just to see our digital program, just our digital event program, sorry. And then another thing, we are live streaming this event, so if we could minimize some of the background noise as much as possible, just so we kind of reduce that feedback. And if you have any friends or loved ones that weren't able to make it today and would like to join us on the live stream, they can search Women of Color Allegiance on YouTube and the link should come up. But now I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. We are so excited to be sharing this space with you all. We first want to thank and recognize our partners at the Islamic Center of Olympia. Without them, we would not be able to present you all with the wonderful program we have tonight. We would like to give a special thanks to Mustafa Muhammad Ali for his contributions to our program and planning of this event. Mustafa is a first-generation immigrant, a native of Kenya with Indian history. He lives in Olympia with 3 generations of his family. He is a licensed professional engineer and a certified project manager and works for the Washington State Department of Transportation and Research Manager. He has worked in 10 countries and traveled 27, and he speaks 5 languages and can get by in a couple more. Mustafa, can you please stand, and can we give him another round of applause? Again, thank you all so much for being here, and now I'm going to hand this off to Shai, our Outreach and Research Officer, to cover our agenda for the night. Thank you.
We have an amazing program planned for you all tonight. First, we will cover the goals of today's session. Next, our keynote speaker, Melissa, will give a presentation on the hijab. Then you'll hear a bit from our guest speakers and have a chance to ask our panelists some questions. Then we will go over a pledge so you can make to support the right of the hijab and then take a moment of reflection. I'm going to give the mic to Tori to talk about our goals for today.
Thank you. So my name is Tori, and I'm the president and founder of the Women of Color Allegiance. So we're so happy to be able to host this event in partnership with the Islamic Center of Olympia. Before we get to our guest speakers, I would like to take this time to set our expectations of the audience and this space in general. So we would like to honor and respect our guest speakers by listening with the ear of the heart during our time here. I would like to remind us of our Benedictine values and encourage us to practice them at this time. We expect our audience to engage in hospitality with our guests. We ask you to listen and have respect for all persons in this room and on our panel tonight. Please keep these values in mind as we move forward through the program. We hope that through listening with the ear of your heart, you gain a better understanding of the hijab during this event and are motivated to foster support for the right of the hijab. With that, I'm going to hand things off to Awar.
Thank you, Tori. My name is Awar, and I am Womxn's secretary. Founded by Nazma Khan, every year on February 1st, World Hijab Day recognizes the millions of Muslim women who choose to wear the hijab. It's also a day to encourage women of all backgrounds and all religions to wear and experience the hijab. It's estimated that people in over 150 countries take part in World Hijab Day every year. World Hijab Day has been endorsed by many, from scholars, politicians, and celebrities worldwide. Nazma Khan founded World Hijab Day in 2013. The social activist came to this country from Bangladesh at the tender age of 11, where she found herself being the only hijabi in middle school. She remembers her experience as a difficult one. Nazma stated, quote, "Growing up in the Bronx, New York City, I experienced a great deal of discrimination due to my hijab. In middle school, I was Batman or Ninja. When I entered university after 9/11, I was called Osama bin Laden or terrorist. It was awful. I figured the only way to end discrimination is if we ask our fellow sisters to experience the hijab themselves," end quote. And for that reason alone, thank you all for coming to help and celebrate World Hijab Day today. I'm going to pass things off to Ali.
Thank you so much, Awar. I would like us all to think about Tori's words from a few minutes ago, and with that in mind, I have the honor and pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker of the night. Could we please give a warm welcome to Melissa Chaudhry. A few more words just to introduce her. Miriam Melissa Chaudhry is a recent revert or convert to Islam who loves the religion for its dedication to cultivating peace. She grew up as a white American woman in a mixed religion household of atheist, Christian, and Unitarian Universalist, and has found a grounded sense of purpose, devotion, and joy in Islam that integrates the best of everything she knew before. In her professional life, she works as a grant writer and advocate for a variety of nonprofit efforts dedicated to environmental sustainability, affordable housing, immigrant rights, and empowering all people to live out their best possibilities for purpose and fulfillment in their lives. Her wonderful husband, a disabled U.S. Army veteran, South Asian immigrant, and devoted peace activist, and a born Muslim, is her mentor in most areas of life, including Islam. They hope to raise a family of kind, responsible, peacemaking children in the cradle of the faith. Melissa.
Assalamu alaikum. May the peace of God be with you. It's an appropriate sentiment at a Benedictine Catholic university, don't you think? The truth is, Islam and Christianity have a very great deal in common. Islam added on to Christianity and clarified some aspects of the faith, but fundamentally, they're the same religion. Muslims in the Quran are advised to respect and protect Christians, to treat them and everyone fairly in business affairs, and to consider them as kin. The reverse, as we know, does not always apply. But I get ahead of myself. Hello, it's a pleasure to see you all, and thank you for choosing to be here tonight. My name is Melissa Mariam Chaudhry, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you this evening. Many thanks to the Women of Color Allegiance for coordinating this wonderful event. Also to Mustafa Muhammad Ali from our local mosque, Masjid al-Nur, for inviting me. Thanks to St. Martin's for making this evening possible, and to Nazma Khan, the founder of World Hijab Day, for sparking this movement that gives us a reason to gather tonight. And thank you to my family, especially to my husband, Muhammad Chaudhry, without whose loving enthusiasm, astonishing expertise, and passionate encouragement, I would not be here. In many ways, I'm an unusual choice for someone to speak to you about World Hijab Day. I'm white, I was born an American citizen, and I'm a recent convert, we generally say revert, to Islam. I'm quite new to wearing the hijab. My religious background has been diverse. I was raised in a mixed faith family. My mother was Christian, my father an atheist, humanist, Buddhist, and the two of them settled on raising me and my sister in Unitarian Universalist communities. I eventually delved into Druidry and other forms of nature-based religion, went on a brief stint in evangelical Christianity, and spent most of my adult life searching for a unifying message that affirmed the spirituality I readily experienced in daily life, while providing reliable and wholesome guidance for interacting with others and living in the practical world on a day-to-day basis. I found that unifying message and guidance in Islam. I tell you this to give you a little context on myself personally and to position how I'm speaking to you this evening. I am not a lifelong Muslim. I am not an immigrant. I carry the privileges that come with being born a U.S. citizen of European ancestry, raised and educated speaking English, and provided many opportunities by my upper middle class family. I am not brown-skinned. I don't speak with an accent. I have never experienced the racism, xenophobia, and anti-immigrant sentiment that so often gets mixed in with prejudice against Islam. And I didn't grow up Muslim, so I didn't encounter the same persecution for the sake of wearing hijab in school that Nazma Khan, the founder of this holiday, did. My experiences are quite unusual for an American Muslim in those ways. What I'm here to do, therefore, is provide a bit of a cultural bridge. My goal in speaking with you tonight is that you come away with food for thought, a greater sense of understanding, and just as much, if not more, openness, curiosity, and acceptance as you came in with. Maybe I'll succeed in making you laugh along the way. See? Check. Before I fully jump into things, let me tell you now that links to everything I reference can be found on my Linktree, which is linktree.ee/Melissa Chowdhury. I'll put it up on the last slide. Also, please let me know by nodding your head when you've finished reading what's on each slide as I click through. These are pretty text heavy and I want to give you a chance to absorb it. I'll generally wait until after I see that you've got it before I speak. What I'll do first is provide you with some context for what exactly we're discussing. The Islamic practice of wearing a head covering and dressing modestly as a reminder of one's devotion to God or Allah and to personal principles of morality, responsibility, and devotion. Let's take a moment with a couple of slides. In this talk, I'll use the term Allah to refer to the greatest power, the unifying, invisible, benevolent spiritual force that animates all of life and can provide guidance, comfort, and correction to us in our journeys of life. Allah, as a word, provides a more ineffable sense of this great mystery than God, and is less amenable to being used for profanity. Being a Muslim simply means that one has surrendered one's life, will, and personal journey to Allah. For me, this took place when I was 18 years old, though I didn't find my way to Islam until I was 30. I was at an indigenous gathering of teaching and ceremonies in British Columbia. Many incredible things happened there. And one morning, I created a moment for myself in the woods, alone. I was 18 and had begun to sense a mysterious, benevolent, invisible, powerful, guiding force in my life. I held a small ceremony and dedicated myself to that force. I said, "Show me where to go, and I'll do what you put in front of me to do." I may not have sat in a circle of witnesses and affirmed the oneness of Allah and the prophethood of Muhammad, peace be upon him, until the age of 30, but that was the day I became a Muslim, and I've lived with that inner devotion ever since. Now, I'll wait. About the reason we've all gathered here, hijab. Hijab simply refers to the modesty of dress and behavior that befits a self-respecting woman, and in common usage, as we are aware, the term refers to a headscarf or other covering. Hijab is an instruction in the Quran given to both men and women. Because it is an instruction, some consider it the obligation of a believing woman, but the Quran directly states that there is to be no compulsion in religion, and many Muslim women choose not to wear it. It should be a personal choice between an individual woman and Allah, and it is not the only way to live a fulfilled and worshipful life. Now, naturally, Islam is far from the only tradition that values modest dress, including head coverings. Some branches of Christianity, particularly for nuns, Orthodox Jews, many Hindus, highborn Europeans, and others throughout history have employed some form of the headscarf. In the 13th century in Assyria, headscarves were made mandatory for wives, widows, and daughters, but were forbidden to prostitutes. In a way, the message of the headscarf has always been, I value myself. I am something to be protected, sheltered, respected. I am not here for your baser instincts. I am dedicated to something more important. I'll let you absorb her words. My personal journey with the headscarf began in high school. Despite being raised in a different faith tradition, I always felt an affinity for modest dress and a desire to distinguish myself from the goings and comings of sexual interest in modern American life. As a sophomore, I decided to take a day and wear a headscarf that my father had brought back from his time in Iraq as a gift for me. A tall, white, teenage American girl wearing a black and red headscarf in the food court of a modern American mall. Let's just say I drew some odd looks. The reactions of others notwithstanding, I found that I enjoyed wearing it. The headscarf reduced my sense of exposure. I felt sheltered, secure, comfortable, safe. Many women who choose to wear hijab report similar feelings, and that reduction in social exposure often translates to feeling free to be and do what really matters. Contrary to common impressions, women who wear the hijab are often professionally successful, personally empowered, socially assertive, and quite comfortable with our identities. It is true that some women are compelled to wear hijab, which, in fact, runs directly counter to Islamic teachings. By the way, if you ever have a chance to listen to anything from Linda Sarsour or read her works, I highly recommend it. The verses related to hijab, on screen here, advise modesty in dress and behavior for both men and women, and say nothing of any punishment for choosing not to cover. Both extremes, forcibly mandating hijab, as in Iran, and forcibly preventing women from wearing hijab, as in France, Sweden, and sometimes here, are both wrong. Both prevent women from exercising agency and free choice over their personal expression of devotion. The decision to cover is a highly personal one that means different things to different women. For some, the choice is purely spiritual. For some, it's related to community and culture. For others, particularly in other countries, there is embedded in it an act of political emphasis on the importance of Islamic culture and tradition, often with a possibly reasonable sense of defiance against Western cultural imperialism. For myself, it demonstrates my inner devotion to a higher purpose, and I find it quite practical. It's comfortable and warm, and as an adult with the privileges I carry, I find people either leave me alone or treat me with greater respect, and either way is fine with me. For many women, however, being hijabi, or Muslim for that matter, means that some common social practices you might take for granted should be adapted. Muslim women will generally not shake hands with a man she doesn't know well and trust. Handshakes aren't a standard greeting for a Muslim woman, and eye contact may be considered too personal. cultural sensitivity should be employed. When in doubt, read body language and do not press a woman to shake hands who is clearly reluctant to do so. A hand over the heart is a safe bet. My experience, as I mentioned, is unusual. Oh, wait a moment. Muslim women in the United States who wear the hijab, which is roughly 4 in 10 of us, are often the targets of harassment and even violence. Sometimes that's structural discrimination, the result of a prejudicial policy that restricts religious expression. Sometimes it's a direct physical attack triggered by the hijab. Victims are often immigrants, dark-skinned, smaller of stature. They make easier targets, and their attackers act out of racism, misogyny, and hatred of the other, as well as direct Islamophobia. If only those attackers could see these women as they truly are, as loving, capable, and hardworking, as faithful and trustworthy, as resilient and brave and strong. Muslim women are capable professionals, dedicated family members, accomplished academics, and pillars of our communities. We do not deserve to face discrimination and violence simply because of our religion or choice of clothing. And it isn't just women. Muslims more broadly are often not permitted to practice our faith in peace, which is sad and funny because salam, our greeting, is an offering of peace. Anti-Muslim attacks are a fact of life in the world today and take place closer to home than you might think. We all remember major events like the Christchurch mosque shooting in New Zealand, but just this week, a mosque was bombed in northern Pakistan in the middle of communal prayer, killing more than 80 worshippers. In India, even now, the ruling Hindu Nationalist Party would like to destroy 30,000 mosques and make India a solely Hindu country, not to mention the many millions of Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, atheists, and other faiths who have always called India home. And last year, a car was driven through the window of a mosque in Burien, just north of here, straight into the community's prayer space. That was the 5th attack in Washington in 4 months. The year before that, our own mosque, 2 miles north of here, was firebombed with an explosive device that could be heard from here. Thank goodness no one was hurt. Since that day, a group of non-Muslim community members wait outside during Friday prayers. They call themselves the Mosqueteers, and they keep watch for us. May Allah bless them as they bless us. And may Allah bring peace to the hearts of those who seek to harm us. As it turns out, that's not impossible. When you have time, I highly recommend watching the short documentary Stranger at the Gate. It's won a bunch of awards now, which tells the story of a veteran, a U.S. Marine, who was deeply convinced he needed to bomb a mosque in Indiana to protect his home and family. It didn't go how he expected, but that's only because he decided he needed to prove that we were all terrorists first. It can be streamed for free online. You'll find it. I've got it linked. Another outstanding film about the beautiful, joyful, challenging journey of being Muslim in America, particularly after 9/11, is My Name is Khan. For that one, I recommend popcorn, tissues, and a few good friends. Maybe by now it goes without saying, but let me be clear. We are not terrorists. We're your neighbors. At this point, I'll flip through a few slides with you, giving a little more background on Islam and its perspective on women. Islam, as a religion, promotes moderation, tolerance, balance, harmony, and peace. It provides wise guidance in difficult situations, including business and commerce, marriage and parenting, divorce and family law, education, spiritual practice, crime and punishment, war and peace. The Muslim world achieved astonishing levels of civilizational accomplishment in medicine, science, philosophy, architecture, and overall prosperity. And its guidelines are worth looking into as providing a healthy structural arrangement for society. It also attracted vicious envy and violent attacks from Christian Europe. We call those times the Crusades, which were passed down to our elementary school curriculums in fairly one-sided form. Wouldn't you agree? And of course, any system is only as good as the honor of the people who implement and uphold it. Corruption and short-sightedness are, regrettably, a pitfall of the human condition. Islam itself teaches unity, justice, and virtue. It is against racism, sexism, oppression, unwarranted violence, and all forms of injustice. In Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 103, the full verse reads, "And hold fast, all of you together, to the rope of Allah, and do not become divided. And remember the favor of Allah upon you, when you were enemies, and He brought your hearts together, and you became, by His favor, brothers. And you were on the edge of a pit of the fire, and He saved you from it. Thus does Allah make clear to you His verses, that you may be guided." This verse stresses the importance of unity among believers and emphasizes that division based on personal or tribal differences is against the teachings of Islam. The rope of Allah referred to is the guidance provided by the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And the verse encourages believers to remain united and to avoid division and disagreement. Islam provides personal guidance to both men and women, drawing from the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family and followers. Men are advised to be compassionate, honest, just, humble, and patient, tender with their families, fair-minded with all, and as strong as necessary in the outer world. Let me go into each of those just a little. Compassion. The Prophet Muhammad was known for his kindness, compassion, and empathy toward others, especially the less fortunate. He was also known for his generosity and willingness to help those in need. Honesty. The Prophet was widely regarded as one of the most honest and trustworthy individuals of his time, and his word was highly valued and respected by those around him. Justice. The Prophet was known for his unwavering commitment to justice, and he worked tirelessly to promote fairness and equality in society. Humility. Despite his great spiritual and moral standing, the Prophet was known for his humility and modesty. He never sought to draw attention to himself and always sought to serve others before himself. And patience. The Prophet Muhammad was known for his great patience and resilience in the face of adversity. He was able to endure great hardship with grace and dignity, and he never lost faith in Allah or in his mission. Because he stayed true, he changed the world. As a respected and equal counterpart, women are taught to be pious, generous, welcoming, patient, and persistent, and are actively encouraged in education, work, and family. Motherhood is cherished in Islam, and in Quranic structures, women and men have complementary and mutually supportive roles in strengthening their family. But women in the Quran play other strong roles as well, in conducting trade and business, stewarding land and wealth, learning the Quran and practicing law, and being trustworthy managers and leaders. When it arrived in the 7th century BC as we know it, Islam provided an unprecedented level of empowerment and respect to women, granting us rights that Christianity and Judaism had either not guaranteed or outright denied. The Quran affirms the equality of all human beings, regardless of gender, race, or social status, and says that, quote, the believers, men and women, are protectors of one another. End quote. How different would American society be? How much safer would you feel if you'd been brought up to actively protect and support people of the opposite sex and everyone, non-binary inclusive, and with the deep certainty that they were taught to protect you? This equality in Islam extends to the rights and responsibilities of men and women in Islamic society, with women being explicitly granted the right to own property, to work, to divorce, to initiate divorce, to inherit, to engage in commerce and trade, to pursue an education, and to engage in other forms of self-expression and fulfillment. Earlier Abrahamic faiths, Christianity and Judaism specifically, with whom Islam has a lot in common, but they were much less liberal in the rights they granted to women. One of the most remarkable examples of Islam's reverence for women can be found in the words of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who said, "Paradise lies at the feet of mothers." This hadith highlights the central role that mothers play in the family and in society, and stresses the importance of treating mothers with respect, honor, and love. It serves as a reminder of the sacrifices that mothers make for their children and the central role that we play in shaping the future of society. Mothers in Islam are seen as symbols of love, compassion, and selflessness, and are honored for their tireless efforts in nurturing and raising the next generation. Women are also encouraged to pursue an education. I'll finish this line. And are seen as fully capable, including of leadership and deserving of equal pay. Several Muslim countries have had female heads of state, a distinction even the United States has not achieved. I'm going to pause for just a moment. That was the call to prayer. Should we pause for just a few moments and do that? Okay. So keep going? All right. Let me share with you the words of this 10-year-old girl or so explaining hijab.
Hi. How are you? I'm good. What's your name? So why are you girls so oppressed to wear hijab in Islam? What?
Can I have your phone?
My phone. Why do you want my phone?
Just give it to me. I will explain.
Okay.
adorable, isn't she? As she describes, the hijab is seen as a form of protection, a way for women to express our devotion to God and to demonstrate our commitment to modesty while reducing the likelihood of attracting unwanted attention, in theory. When freely chosen, it provides a cultural reminder to both the woman herself and to those who perceive her to focus on a woman's skills, talents, and inner qualities more than her outward appearance. In this way, wearing hijab can be a liberating and personally empowering decision. Islam believes that every human and every woman is a precious being. Wearing hijab is one way that we remind ourselves and each other that a woman's value is far, far more than her outward beauty could ever show. What we cherish, we gently wrap with a soft cloth. This is true of newborns, of old silver, of precious gems, of sacred books, and it is true of women as well. Oh, sorry. Islam cherishes and values women, especially mothers, and recognizes their contributions and sacrifices in building strong families and communities. By promoting equality, education, and empowerment, Islam seeks to create a society where women can flourish and thrive, which means everyone can flourish and thrive, and where our rights and dignity are protected and respected. But if you grew up in the United States, I'm going to bet that that's not what you heard from the media for most of your life. It's certainly not what I grew up hearing. Horror stories exist, to be sure, but they are cultural, not religious in origin, and that's an important distinction. And unfortunately, let's face it, there are a few people who are inclined to do terrible things everywhere, regardless of religion. If you're maybe looking to recalibrate your view of Islam, here's a book I recommend. Tens of thousands of systematic interviews across 36 countries are summarized within it. If you want to know what Muslims the world over really think, read this book. It's an easy read. I suspect you'll find more in common than you expected. If you'd like to join us, or just to visit, we invite you to open house at Masjid al-Nur, just 2 miles north of here. One of our sisters or brothers will be more than happy to welcome you, make you feel comfortable, and if you wish, show you how to wrap a hijab. We're friendly, we promise. Being a Muslim woman is a journey of continual practice, of self-improvement, of surrendering to and into the goodness that is planned and provided for us by a loving and benevolent God. By allowing a greater goodness to move us, by surrendering to Allah's grace, we find peace in our hearts and the courage and patience and perseverance to find and fulfill our place in this world. We strive to show the world what faith in action looks like as we work for justice, practice charity, embrace compassion, seek and share knowledge, and, as the Quran instructs, urge each other to the truth and urge each other to perseverance. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was amazing. At this time, I would like to invite our panelists and guest speakers to go ahead and take a seat at the front. So can we give Melissa another round of applause? So next up, we have our amazing guest speakers. I have the honor and privilege of introducing our first student speaker, close personal friend of mine, Rehana Oyen. I'm going to be completely honest. I was selfish and made sure that I introduced Rehana because I love her. So, full transparency. So, Rehana Oyen uses she, her pronouns and is a senior at the University of Washington studying psychology. She didn't brag as much in her bio, but she also has her associates from Green River College. She was born in Washington and grew up in a Muslim household to an Indonesian mom and a white American dad. Having a parent who was born Muslim and another who converted to Islam has given her a variety of perspectives on the religion. Additionally, through spending summers in Indonesia, a Muslim-majority country, she was able to learn many of her Islamic values from her family. Despite growing up in a country where Muslims are a minority, she has still been able to grow her confidence in practicing her beliefs, such as wearing the hijab. Please welcome Rehana.
Hi everybody, Assalamualaikum. So as Tori said, my name is Rehana. The hijab. I don't really have an exact time that I started wearing the hijab. Growing up, my mom had one rule for me around the hijab, and that is that I wear it to Islamic events. She made this rule for me to teach me to respect my religion, and however, she left it to me to decide when I would wear it long term. Looking back, I understand why my parents made this choice. It helped me learn to love Allah and Islam. Honestly, I have always loved my religion growing up, but in America, the cultural values don't always align with my Islamic values. Often when I would practice my religion, people would ask me why I was blindly following some religion. And hearing things like this when I was growing up, like in middle school and high school, really impacted my relationship with my religion, unfortunately. And I kind of experienced an identity crisis. I felt like my values as a Muslim and the Rehana that I presented to the world were not the same. That is until I decided to wear the hijab long term. So I first started wearing it every day back during the beginning of COVID, and that was very easy for me because I was not meeting with people, of course. So I only had contact with my Muslim community, which made it a lot easier until I started to interact with people. I had some very interesting experiences. I think even though I had worn the hijab to Islamic events and Islamic classes that I took weekly, it was still a really major shock to me how different I was treated. And even though it was difficult, of course now I'm in a better place with the hijab, and even though every day it's not necessarily easy, from when I first started up until now, I don't have any regrets about starting to wear the hijab. For those of you who are like my close friends, I actually did take a break from wearing the hijab a year ago, and unfortunately it was because of a lot of the discrimination that I faced and just things that were said to me. However, now. As I said before, despite all of that, I am very proud of my religion, and I'm very thankful that now I've even been given a space to talk about it. So, yeah.
All right. Oh, okay. All right, that was amazing. And now introducing Nura Johan. Nura is a senior majoring in psychology at the University of Washington. She was born in Lacey, Washington, and grew up in a practicing Muslim household to 2 Indonesian parents. She's been involved in her local Muslim community, MAPS, and the Indonesian Muslim Society of America since a young age. She's currently teaching elementary students Islamic studies online through Zoom with IMSA, and is also part of IMSA's social media team. She hopes to use her psychology degree to focus on Muslim mental health and give back in her community.
Hello everyone, Assalamualaikum. Okay, so as you know, my name is Nura, and I want to thank St. Martin's for inviting us here, and special shout out to my mom right there for driving me all the way here. So Melissa did a really good job explaining what the hijab was, but I kind of wanted to add on to that. So Islam means to submit, right? So when we're wearing the hijab, that's the most important thing because we're submitting to God, and that's why we wear the hijab, right? And it's not just about the piece of cloth that we wear on our head. It's about modesty, and not just in the way we dress, but the way we act and the way we carry ourselves. And I think that's really important to know. So now that I've got that out of the way, I kind of want to talk about my experiences with the hijab. So growing up, my parents did not force the hijab upon me at all. They explained what the hijab was to me, and they explained when a Muslim woman should start wearing the hijab, and that's following your first menstruation or puberty. And so they kind of told me about that, and then onto that, that's kind of how I knew. And so I first started wearing the hijab on a trip back from Umrah. And if you guys don't know what Umrah is, you might be familiar with pilgrimage, and that's when we go to Saudi Arabia and go to the Kaaba. So I came back from that, and we were vacationing in Paris. And at this time, and currently, we were facing a lot of Islamophobia in Paris. And so, I guess when I was coming back from Umrah, I didn't come back with the intention of wearing the hijab on vacation. It was more of like, I felt it. Like, I felt that I was ready to wear the hijab. And this is not a universal experience, but it was what I experienced. And I felt something that, like, it told me that, Allah told me that I was ready to wear it, right? I should take the next step as a Muslim woman. And so, I started wearing the hijab then. And I came back, and I like to think about this as like buying a treadmill. So when you buy a treadmill, you have the motivation is still fresh, right? But after a while, it kind of slows down. I think that's kind of how I felt after I first wore the hijab. But I already had it on, and I think for a little bit after that, because I was still young and I was in middle school, I think I was wearing it because I already wore it, so I still have to wear it. But I was at home most of the time because I was homeschooled. So I guess when I first really faced discrimination was in high school. And that's when I started learning about Islam. Because even though you're born Muslim, you still have to learn about Islam. And one of the most important things about Islam that really separates it from a lot of other religions is that we are promoted to seek knowledge, to constantly seek knowledge, to constantly ask questions. And that's one of the most important things as a Muslim. And so during high school, that's when I really understood what it meant to be a hijabi, what it meant to submit to God. And I think that was a very valuable lesson, and I honestly am really, really proud to be a hijabi, really proud to be a Muslim. And college as a hijabi is really great because, sorry, I'm mentioning after school, but UW is really, really great. But today we also had a World Hijab Days booth from our MSA, the Muslim Student Association, and we allowed people to wear the hijab. So similar to what we're doing at the end of this event, we're also putting on the hijab on them. And so, yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Always journey. I'm not sure because it's one of those mics we had to clip on and everything. Okay. That was really amazing, Nora. Thank you for sharing that. Next up, we have Rokai Phansaw. Rokai Phansaw was born in Cambodia and came to the United States at the age of 4. She is currently working as a senior human resources consultant at HQHR Employee Relations Relations Office at the Washington State Department of the Transportation. She is married and has 2 beautiful children. My brain turned off after 3 p.m. today. She loves spending time with family and enjoys camping and outdoor activities.
Well, good evening. I'm a little rusty. It's been a while since I've been out, so thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight and to be amongst people who are wanting to learn and others that are here to support. So I am very happy to be here tonight, so thank you for the opportunity. So a little bit about myself. As you introduced it, my name is Rokai Phansaw. I am an immigrant, born in Cambodia. Came to the United States in 1980. My parents struggled, and when I was born in 1976, it was during the Khmer Rouge communist regime, and a war going on at this time, little baby being born. The expectation for me to be alive today is quite slim, but I'm here, and I'm a living example of my parents' struggles and their ability to really fight for their freedom because they knew they had an opportunity, and they knew that they had hope to come to find something somewhere that they can allow their family to practice the religion where religion was stripped away from them. So at the age of 4, in Arizona, growing up, I don't know much about Cambodia, right? I'm as American as I hope Americans think that I am and want to be, but I struggle with my identity. I struggled with the language. My parents didn't understand. Sometimes I had to interpret for them when I went to medical facilities or places that they needed someone to speak on their behalf. So there's a lot of learning gaps and curves that I had to overcome as barriers. But as a Muslim, my faith taught me that I had to learn and study and become strong. And so my journey in life was, as a hijabi, we sometimes take things for granted and we don't realize what we have until we come to a place where we start to question and reflect. And I started doing that my junior year in high school. And that is when, similar to, I think, Raihana, when you start to have identity crisis. I wasn't a hijabi at that time, and just the turmoil inside of me, because I wasn't true to myself, and when I went to school in high school, the pressure's on. I wanted to be a cheerleader, right? I mean, that's like everybody's high school dream. And so I was looking at that going, wow, how can I get there? But then with my Islamic teachings, I'm supposed to be humble. I shouldn't be too exposing. So I struggle with that balance and trying to really understand what is going to make me happy. Where does my faith come in, my ability to make it fit for me? And so I realized that when I went shopping with my parents, I wore my hijab. I would hide because I was afraid my friends would see me, at the mall. And so I'm like, ugh, this is not fun. And when I'm at school, I'd wear my hijab and I'm feeling guilty. So I'm living this dual life. And I'm not true to myself. So no one knows this. I did a really good job suppressing this and hiding it. But inside, it was very, very difficult. So one day I had the courage to say, you know what, this is important to me. I think that's where I really found Islam. And that's when I really started to understand the meaning of practicing my faith. To really understand this is who I am, this is my identity. And I got the courage to one day put that hijab on. My parents never forced me. I saw that my mom, my sisters, older sisters practiced it, and I always respected them, loved their ways, but couldn't apply it to myself. Until one day, I got the courage to wear it, and I thought to myself, man, this is a big day. Wonder how my friends are going to take this, right? What are their impressions? What are they going to think of me? But I thought to myself, it's more important about me. It's not about them. And let's see how this goes, right? And so I went, just another day. It wasn't so bad. So I thought, hey, I just really made this horrible, really overthink this. There are some stares, but also there are some supportive friends. So I realized that in life, it really doesn't matter what people think. It comes down to who you are and what your thoughts are and what makes you happy. And I was the most happiest person practicing my faith. And I knew that moving forward, right? So I have like the before and the after. And the after is where I am now. And this is a long time ago, my journey today. I know that I am a better person because I put my hijab on. When I put it on, I realized that it's intentional. So when it's intentional, everything I do really represents who I am and my religion and my faith. So I bring that to the table. I bring that to my job. I bring that to my friends. And I'd like to think that with the hijab, I'm also sparking some conversation. I'm also allowing people to ask me questions. And I shouldn't be afraid to start that, to allow people to understand why. And I enjoy it. And I'd like to just go back to when 9/11. That was when I started my college years. And September 11, Evergreen State College started on the 23rd, September 23rd that year. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna start the Evergreen State College, right? And then I go for my bachelor's degree. Should I really go, or should I not? Because I'm afraid now I'm identified as this group of people, and I'm torn. Because that's not me, but I'm fearful. I'm fearful for my life. I'm fearful to be exposed. I'm fearful of people not knowing who I am, that I am a threat to them. And I had a very tough conversation with my husband. I said, I've registered for this. I've been accepted to this program. I'm struggling whether or not to start or to continue my education. He was like, if Islam is your way, Islam is you should not allow fear to take over and stop you from this pursuing your education. So I thought, okay, let's give it a try. So I went my first day. The students there were so supportive. They saw that I wore the hijab, so they knew right away that I was a Muslim. But I was in the comfort of people who looked at me and said, we're here for you. We are here to support you. This does not represent you. And I didn't even have to explain it to these students. They are amazing, so I was in the right place. So I had continued my education, but that was my 9/11 experience in school campus. But there's also after that, and then but overall, I believe that this country is very special to me because it allowed me a lot of opportunities that I would not have had if I was not here. So I'm grateful to my parents for their escape, for leaving their homeland and coming to a country for us. And now I am building, right, a future for my children. And then letting them know that this is home. We are part of the fabric of this country. And we will make it a better place. And every day I try to make a difference, in my job, in my interaction with people. I allow that space for my colleagues to ask me questions and to also say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And when they know who I am, I realize too that I break a lot of barriers. I break a lot of stereotypes. And I'd like to say, in final, that Islam has given me the peace that I need. Hijab is my identity. It gives me courage, it gives me strength, it gives me dignity, and it also humbles me. We talk a lot about women's right? A lot about religious freedom. This, to me, is my right and my freedom.
Hey, so can everybody hear me? Cool, great. So we now have Sakina Jocelyn Hunt. She is an African-American Muslim. After spending a significant amount of time of her life studying various religions, she accepted Islam as her religion. Sakina grew up attending Baptist church, where she sang in junior choir. Her paternal grandmother was Seventh-day Adventist, and in the summer she attended vacation Bible school at the Seventh-day Adventist church. Her maternal grandmother and family were Baptist. She attended the end of her junior year of high school and her first high school year in Catholic school, although she regularly attended her home church. Dissatisfied with the various conflicts in the various Bible teachings under the advice of her late Uncle Will, and in effort to find resolve and peace in her life, she began actively seeking out God or Allah for herself. After attending many sects of Christianity, she didn't find answers to her many questions. She attempted studying with the Nation of Islam, but after several months, she discovered that that wasn't for her. Frustrated and conflicted, knowing there is one who created all creation without any help, she told her cousin she was not going back to church. Her cousin told her he had a friend who was Muslim and she should talk to him in an effort to get her questions answered. With an open mind and heart, she prayed and asked Allah to bless her to find the truth and to accept it no matter where she found it. She began listening to lectures about being a Muslim, hellfire, and the Day of Judgment. She was given a Quran and she began reading it. In the Quran, she discovered the answers to all her questions. She contends, and she's never had so much peace in her life, even in the midst of chaos. She reverted to Islam 27 years ago and began wearing the hijab 8 years ago. Oh, the niqab 8 years ago. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for having me here. I'm very honored and humbled to be here to share a little bit about myself. I don't normally talk about myself, and so I'm very humbled with the opportunity. As she said, I have been Muslim for 27 years now. My journey was very interesting. I grew up Baptist and Seventh-day Adventist, but as a child I remember reading the Bible, and I remember reading certain verses in the Bible that specifically stated that there was God and then there was Jesus, but Jesus prayed to God, but they weren't one and the same. And that stuck with me. One of the many questions that I had was, if Jesus died for my sins, why do I have to pray? Why do I have a day of judgment? When do I know to turn the other cheek and when to go to the other eye? And I'm not really a turn the other cheek kind of person. So that was very conflicting for me. As I began to study the various sects of Christianity and spending significant time in each of them, there was a running joke in my family where they would say, oh, she's tried every religion except Buddhists and the monks. And it would be this roar of laughter. And I thought, that's okay. I just knew as a child that there was just one God. I just had trouble finding it. And so as I began my journey and reading and studying the different sects, I did find there was truth in every last one of them. But there was always something missing, and I was always conflicted. And so I began, as I became older and more mature and more responsible, and looking at and knowing that there's heaven and hell, that I've got to figure out what this God is and what it is that I'm supposed to do in my life so that I can teach my children, so that they too can decide for themselves. For me, putting on the hijab was really easy because I had spent my whole life not wearing it. So I, had Christmas. I had the school proms and all that stuff that American people do because I grew up here doing it. And so by the time I did become Muslim, the easiest thing for me to do was to put on the hijab. It was the absolute easiest because even though I didn't really understand or know why or the significance of the hijab at the time, it was just, you have to cover your hair and you have to cover your body. And it's like, oh, easy peasy, no problem, I can do this. And so as I began to study and really learn and understand about the hijab, the seriousness, the importance of it, for me, it was like you can't have a thin skin and wear the hijab because you're gonna get the stares, you're gonna get the comments, you're gonna get people that are going to follow you, harass you, and do all kinds of things that you can't even imagine. And it's like, okay, so initially it was kind of like, okay, this is my choice, I've made my decision, and now I've got to stand on it. And so initially it was like, okay, my family was very against it. And they were like, one, you're changing your whole religion. And so it was like, yes, I'm changing my whole religion because I'm dissatisfied with what I've known my whole life. And so to accept something totally foreign in my family and something totally different posed a lot of conflict in the family. But because I had done enough study and I had come to understand, it was like, this is my choice, this is my soul, this is my life. And so, therefore, it's my responsibility. So in talking to my family, I think they became more worried about me the deeper I got into it. Because when September 11th happened, I was about 6 years into the practice of Islam. By then, they were pretty much convinced, yeah, she's serious about this one, because they hadn't seen me stick with anything that long. So they knew I was serious. But then it was, oh, now you're labeled a terrorists because they're saying this about the news, about Muslims in the news, and they're saying that. And so then it went from there. When I went to Hajj, I specifically remember my mom saying, "You're going over there to Iraq with all those bombs and stuff, and you're just going to go into that war zone and they're going to kill you." And I was like, "Mom, I'm not even going near there. It's on the same, and it's not near where we're going. It's the Kaaba and Mecca." And I came to realize my family really was genuinely worried about me. And I mean, I understand in hindsight now, I can really understand that fear that they had for me. Because I wasn't afraid. It was like, this is my choice. This is what I'm doing. I'm going for it. And that's just how I've always been. And so my sister said, I remember I was going to work one day, and this was right after September 11th. And she said, "You're going out with all that stuff on?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a Muslim. Why wouldn't I?" And she said, "Aren't you worried about what somebody's going to do to you?" And I said, "Well, if somebody kills me because I'm Muslim or because of how I look, I get to go to paradise instantly, so I'm in a win-win. I don't care, you know." And I said, "I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a hypocrite." And so then I began going to work, and when I would interview for jobs, they were interviewing me, but I was also interviewing them. And so I'm deciding, even though they're asking me questions in my head, I'm deciding, am I going to be able to pray here? Am I going to be able to excuse for Jummah? And so I asked those questions. And if they offered me the job, but I couldn't pray or I couldn't take off for Jummah, I would turn down the job, because it was like, this isn't going to be a fit for me. So then that became the standard for me. You're interviewing me, but I'm interviewing you too. And so that's how that worked out. I do work for the government now. I've been there for 8 years. I do take off for Jummah, and I do wear my hijab. 8 years ago, I started wearing the niqab. And that was a totally different experience, because people, they're used to seeing hijab so much to a point, but not the niqab until COVID hit. I mean, everybody had a niqab. Everybody had a niqab. So once COVID hit, you know, it made it a lot easier for people to really understand, you know. But for me to start wearing the niqab, I was reading the Quran, and I was reading the Hadith, and I was reading and listening to stories of the prophets, the stories of the prophets' wives, peace and blessings be upon all of them. And I just prayed about it. And I decided, I struggled with it back and forth. It was like, am I going to do this? Am I not going to do this? Am I going to do it? And then I just stopped and I prayed. And after I prayed about it, I just made a law of promise that when I put it on, no matter what, I wouldn't take it off. And so here I am. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our wonderful speakers. Most of the remainder of this time will be used for our panel to answer questions from the audience. And if you have a question you would like to ask the panel, please scan the QR code that's on your tables and fill out the form. Thank you.
I guess it's also a bathroom break.
All right, yeah, go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen, which will lead you to a form to fill out where you can ask any questions. Anything to go. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with asking the questions from over here, and then wherever our panelists see fit to answer, go on ahead. So our first question, what are the benefits of wearing the hijab?
talking about that, so I'm going to hand it over.
I find one of the benefits of wearing hijab and niqab is that people don't mess with me. They don't. I find that men will get out of the way. Some of them will open the door. And they just don't, I get harassed in other ways, but at the same time, I find people are more humble and more respectful because they can't see my body and everything that's, the shape and all of that. They can't see the beauty. There's nothing for them to hobble over, and so it makes them respect me, and so I appreciate that.
For me, the hijab is very liberating. That's the benefit. I feel like I'm a living, breathing Muslim that is practicing my faith, and I'm portraying that by putting this cloth on my head that some people might not like, but for me, it's a personal choice, and it's very liberating.
No, not here.
Just projecting, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, can you guys hear me well?
Speak louder.
Okay, if I may add a different perspective, I also think it brings people to ask questions like, why are you wearing that? And so I think it's also an opportunity to share about Islam and why we Muslim.
Another question that we have, how do people respect you when you're wearing a hijab? It's a bit of a follow-up question.
I'll add on to what the sister said. I'm very new to this, but I was with my husband at a gathering in Seattle just last week, at the Gates Foundation, actually. And as I was coming in, I was alone at that moment to enter the building. A gentleman who was also going to the front door saw me. I was in hijab. And he was twice as far away from the door as I was, and he ran to hold the door open for me. I've never had that before. It was kind of nice.
So another question, what does a hijab mean? Is it just a scarf?
For me, it's just a way of life. It's a representation of my submission to my Creator. It's a representation of my ability and willingness to obey God and not really worry about what people think.
Yeah, I think for me, I learned like a lot of my core values from Islam, and I feel like kindness and treating others with compassion is a really big thing that my religion taught me. But oftentimes when we're in life, we can forget to practice those beliefs and get frustrated with people and such. But I feel like when I'm wearing the hijab, it's like a physical thing, and it's like almost a physical reminder of what I value and how I personally would like to act towards other people. So I think that's why they also symbolize this for me.
And I think the hijab identifies us as being modest, and that's how I like to portray my existence. When I meet people, when I am around people, my hijab dignifies that I am modest, and I expect that people, when they look at me, to respect me for that.
I think adding on to everyone else, it's also empowerment for us. So like, people have different definitions of empowerment, and for a Muslim woman, hijab is empowerment.
So the next question, can you customize the hijab?
And so, me, especially being African American and not born into an Islamic environment or wearing hijab, I wear different styles. I wear the Indonesian styles, the Pakistani styles, the African styles. I rock them all.
So what are some misconceptions about the hijab?
That we're forced to wear it and that we're oppressed, that we are doing it against our wills, or that we got married to so that, as you were saying, that we're oppressed, that we're forced to wear it, that we got married. Some of us got married and got forced to do it, or we became Muslim because of a man or something like that, when that's not the case. We choose it, we embrace it, and we do it on our own. And it's our own free will. We're not forced. I think that's the biggest misconception, is that we're forced. It's a symbol of oppression, and it's just not true.
And when your religion is a minority, it takes courage.
Oh, yes.
Just like was previously said, I think a big misconception is that we are oppressed, but I kind of think of a metaphor when I think of that. So a lot of women in America, they might feel more empowered when they're like wearing like a little black dress or whatever. But me personally, I feel more empowered when I am dressed modestly. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable dressing in a way that maybe a lot of people think is empowering here in America. And so by wearing it, I'm actually expressing like my freedom. So yeah, it's very like freeing and definitely not oppressive at all.
Adding on to what everyone else said, I also think that a common misconception is it prevents you from doing things. And I mean, in a way it does, in a way that it protects you, but it doesn't like prevent you from like going to work or going to school, stuff like that. Like we can engage in normal things. So I think that's the only thing I want to add.
For my UW students here, for someone that wants to transfer to UW, what clubs can I join for this?
So we have MSA at UW. So my brother is actually the Dawah coordinator, and Dawah coordinator kind of spreads the message of Islam. And our MSA is actually very open. I was skeptical first going into MSA. We have a stigma going around for MSA called Muslim Singles Association. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. But I went to MSA and the sisters there and the brothers as well. And they're all really, really amazing. And I made some really great friends this year.
Yeah, so as I had mentioned, I took a break from the hijab last year, and so I was actually very worried going into it. I thought that people would judge me and such, and now that I wear it, I kind of felt more comfortable going. But to be honest, I really don't think it would have been an issue. I think that was kind of in my head. Since I started going to more events, I noticed, Nora said, everyone is so nice. I feel especially the sisters, they're always coming up to each other and complimenting each other. It really is such a welcoming community. Yeah.
What are the differences between the hijab and the niqab?
Okay, so the niqab is just a face veil, it's covering your face, whereas the hijab covers your whole body or your hair. some say kimar, some say hijab, but it's, the difference is the niqab covers your face.
How does it feel?
It doesn't. It just another piece of clothing. I mean, it's just when I get up and get dressed, it's just like getting up, putting on pants, a shirt, or a dress. It's just who I am and what I do.
What was it like explaining to your kids what the hijab is and your transition into the religion?
So my daughter's here today. No. But my experience was when she was in kindergarten, she decided to wear a hijab. And I thought, little girl, not the time. You have time. And so I'm like, okay, teaching moment. I'm gonna call my daughter over, talk to her, and she did it behind my back, because I told her not to wear her hijab to school, because she will have time to do it, and it will be her choice when it's time, and it's obligatory for her, and so I'm gonna encourage her to do it. But she decided that that was her choice at that time, and in my conversation with her, she said, Mom, I know you don't want me to wear this, and I know you said when I get older. However, I look at you, I look at your sisters, and they're amazing. And I want to be just like you. And she is still covering today, so I'm grateful.
So despite the fact that I do have a 9-year-old daughter, I'm going to have to answer this question in prospective. She doesn't live with me, she lives with her father. When I speak with my daughter about this decision, I hope that she'll give me the same response she has with several other life choices I've made that have taken me away from her. And that is to let me know what hurts her, and then to let me know that she wishes me well. That's a decision, that's an emotional attitude that I don't think 9-year-olds should generally have to adopt. But it was better that her mom and dad not continue on the path that we were on. If we'd had Islam and a tightly functional community around us and good examples from our elders, we might have been able to make it work, but we weren't. One of the things I'll take a moment to highlight here is that the Quran has some things to say about divorce. Either party may seek a divorce. Islam highly encourages reconciliation as much as humanly possible, but marriage is not a life or death sentence in Islam. And divorced women are specifically spoken about as being just as valuable and eligible for marriage and a future as anybody else.
This question, I've heard that some hijabi women are forced to marry a partner that their parents or relatives choose for them. Is that still happening? If it happens at all.
All right, that sounds like my life. I'm happily married. Yes. It was arranged, and I think there's a lot of difference between culture and religion. Islam doesn't force, but culture might. So, but knowing that we practice the religion and trying to really identify the difference and knowing why you're making the choices that you do. So I understood my parents' intent, and growing up as a Muslim, I knew that they made the best decision for me, and therefore I am grateful for that. But I think Islam does not force marriages. But there are cultures that arrange marriages, and I think that works as well. So To date, I think most of my culture, divorce is very, very minimal. Very minimal. Because I know now as an adult, I'm having children, that the decisions I make for my children are for their best interest. Whether they know it or not, it's really my love for them, and that is the intent. It's getting that to them for them to realize that that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And when they understand that, we agree, and we're able to come to terms and and work that out. So I just, one more thing to share. My daughter is here again, and she's happily married. She's happily married. And we had a lot of conversation around choosing the right spouse, and that ultimately it is her happiness. However, parents are here to support. Parents are here to really guide them through that process. And I think it's the best approach, because she has a partner now that I'm so happy about. And she too is happily married. And I think, as the Quran teaches us, that our partner is half our religion, right? And our happiness is because who they make us. I know that from experience. I'm married 29 years. And it takes a lot of work. And it's a lot of compromise. It's a lot of negotiating. It's a lot of learning, right? My weaknesses, my strength, his weaknesses, his strength. It's like together, we're looking at it going, I don't like that. Can you change? And let's compromise, right? Okay, maybe I can't do it the way you want, but how about this? Okay, let's try that. And it's constantly that, right? I am who I am today because of my husband. And he is who he is today because of me. But we mold each other to be who we are.
What do Muslims think about Jesus?
Could you repeat the question?
I'm so sorry. What do Muslims think about Jesus?
Again, a slightly unusual representative for the faith at the moment. However, my mother was Methodist most of my upbringing, and I certainly spent, we'd alternate going to the Methodist Church and the Unitarian Universalist congregation every week back and forth, which developed critical thinking skills and interfaith tolerance. In Islam, Jesus is known by the name Isa, and he's mentioned how many times? 35? 25 similar prophets, and Isa's name is several hundred times in the Quran, I believe. We believe that Isa was an amazingly inspired holy man, that he was human, not divine, that he was animated by the Holy Spirit, just as he said he was, that he is not the same as Allah, and that we as people can have a direct connection to Allah without having the need of an intermediary, be that Jesus or any type of priest or imam or anything like that. The imams help to guide us and remind us of our faith. They are not standing between us and Allah. And therefore you don't get things like the Catholic Church selling forgiveness in advance for heinous war crimes. Where does that even come from? That has no bearing on a personal relationship with the source of wisdom, goodness, and beauty in the world. Just briefly, Monsieur Elmer did host a really wonderful lecture from our imam about Isa at Christmas time, and so we are perfectly available to chat.
So, growing up Christian, as I stated earlier, I always knew that there was Jesus, but then there was God over Jesus. And the Quran, reading it and learning it, came to verify and confirm that for me. Jesus is a prophet. a messenger sent by God to the people of his time, just as Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon both of them, was sent to the people of his time, but also for all of mankind. And so we believe that while Jesus was born of Virgin Mary, he was not God, but a messenger from God.
So with so much polarization, hate, bigotry, and violence in the world, what can we do to help reverse that?
I think one of the major things when facing like bigotry and discrimination is to educate. And I think that's the importance of World Hijab Day. It's an opportunity to give us a platform and educate people what World Hijab Day truly is, what Islam is, and what it means to be a hijabi.
And we also have to learn to accept people for who they are and where they are. Because, as my dad used to tell me, everybody wasn't raised like you. And so, Allah says in the Quran, he created us nations and tribes that we may know one another. And so, with that in mind, at some point we have got to not look at somebody and make a quick judgment, because a person may look a certain way and be completely opposite of what you thought. And for God's sake, turn off the TV. I'm serious, because they call it programming for a reason. And when I have TV in my house, but it's rarely on. And when it is on, it's because I'm watching a lecture or I'm trying to learn something. Other than that, I call it the idiot box. It has no beneficial knowledge for me, and so I don't play around with it. Because for me, this time is short, and I've got to make my time here count. And so I've got to be able to get out of my own way and see people for who they are. And those that see me for who I am, fine. And if you don't, I'm still going to keep going. But we have got to stop judging each other. And we've got to stop letting the TV program us and fill us with fear and hate.
I'd just like to say that I think from my experience to date, we've come a long ways. I know that because in my employment, we're working hard to include people. We talk about diversity, about equality, about inclusion. And this platform today is what I'm grateful for. And I think this will go a long ways. You know, we're doing it. We're doing what is necessary. And you will find us open to allow that door to have that conversation, tough conversations, and to be able to agree to disagree, to be able to say, my faith teaches me to name my religion, to you yours, and together we can live in peace.
Somebody asked about Jesus in Islam. I just checked on the last table where you came. There's pamphlets there, and everybody's welcome to take some or read some.
To take that positive note and expand it, I should mention that my father was a Navy officer, a humanitarian, and so I grew up with more pictures of landmine victims than most kids. The Islamophobia is real, and it is global, and it is a source of pain and purpose, I think I want to say. Less than a week ago, my family and I were at an event hosted by the Rachel Corrie Foundation looking at the situation in Palestine, where 2.5 million people are crammed into an area about the size of Lake Washington on the Gaza Strip. And from there, kept in by walls, kept in by guns, they are bombed, and they are deprived of medicine,
and they're deprived of food, and they're deprived of clean water. And still, they're a highly educated, artistic, resilient, cheerful, ambitious people. They're also Muslim. I believe, just speaking as a carte blanche, everyone in the world deserves to feel safe in their home. That's true for every Jew. That's true for every Muslim. That's true for every human being. At that event, there was a panel of very distinguished gentlemen, each one of them, and the woman who moderated. And one of them was a psychologist. And he is white American, but does this for a living. And leaned forward at one point and spoke into the questioning room of what do we all do? How do we change hearts and minds? How do we build bridges? And he said, the tribalism that is innate in humans, we are born with it, it's natural to us, we affiliate with those who look like our families of origin first. We have to overcome that. We have to get ourselves every day to care about people who aren't like us. And that's true as far as it goes, and it's beautiful as far as it goes. In my opinion, it doesn't go far enough. Islam teaches us that every human being is our king. We protect our right to practice our own religion. If we are being persecuted or attacked, we'll defend ourselves, but only as far as righteousness allows until we establish our own safe space again. That is proper to any intrinsically sovereign being. Any person has that right. And beyond that, we're all human beings. So shifting the identity from that childlike affinity for what's similar to that universal mindset of we are all people together on this planet is what I think Islam teaches us, and I think it is the direction to grow ourselves and to help each other grow and to speak to the possibility of if aliens visited Earth, they wouldn't care what color we were or what lines we drew on the ground to say, oh no, you're over there and I'm over here. If we're ever going to have a global consciousness, it starts with speaking that into possibility and with events like this to show and remind us that we are all the same.
Thank you so much to our panelists. Can we give them all another round of applause? You can all go ahead and take a seat. Thank you so much.
Okay, I just want to say thank you all so much for your participation in our World Hijab Day celebration thus far, and another special thank you to our panelists for their insight and vulnerability. In wrapping up our program this evening, we would like to encourage you all to take the pledge to support the right of the hijab. The World Hijab Day organization provides a pledge you can make to first reflect upon discrimination Muslim women who wear the hijab face and the continuing issue of institutional discrimination alongside daily bias, prejudice, and bigotry. The second is to learn by educating yourself on discrimination issues targeting Muslim women and spreading awareness. The third is to support public policy solutions and enthusiastically support equality and acceptance for Muslim women. The fourth is to engage by defending the most targeted among us. And the final is to commit by joining the World Hijab Day organization in their efforts to stand for her right to cover. Please scan this QR code to take the pledge, as this will be your first step in becoming an ally for hijabi women.
I would now like to invite Mustafa to come up and talk about the open house that the Islamic Center of Olympia has every Friday, or every first Friday of the month, excuse me.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Before I introduce the open house, I have a couple of questions. How many different versions do we have of the Quran in Arabic? And this question is targeted to non-Muslims. So. Any? Yes.
I just put one.
I'm sorry?
I just put one.
One. Okay. You earn yourself Quran in English. Please, go ahead. So the Quran is only in the Arabic. Everything else is a translation, and it remains the same throughout the world. It hasn't changed for 1400 years. From Mongolia to Morocco, you open page 30 of the Quran, it's always the same. So every letter is exactly the same as it was revealed 1400 years ago, and it exists today. That's why we call the Quran in the Arabic as the Quran. Everything else is a translation, because mankind's understanding of revelation changes as we develop. God's word does not change. So that was the first question. The next question is more to do with our topic tonight, and that is which woman is classified or categorized as a woman of high distinction and of the highest standard in the Quran. What is her name? And mind you, this question is only for non-Muslims. What's the name of the woman who is mentioned in the Quran as one who is the who is the leader of women of all mankind for all time? Anybody want to guess? It's okay. Yes, Robert.
Mary?
Mary is indeed correct. So there is a surah or a chapter in the Quran, Surah Maryam, as she is known, mother of Jesus. We believe in Jesus' miraculous birth. We believe in his second coming. And he is one of the most powerful messengers that mentioned in the Quran, in fact 25 times. And indeed it's correct, there are 25 prophets that are common between the Quran and the Old New Testaments. One final question, also for non-Muslims. Yeah. Which is the country in the world with the highest population of Muslims in the world? Did I see a hand up here? No, please, you can guess, no problem. Anybody want to guess?
Non-Muslims only?
Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Indonesia is absolutely correct. Robert, you get 2 Qurans. So with that, I would also like to thank a few people. To begin with, I would like to thank St. Martin's, Tory, and her musketeers for having made this event possible. I'd like to thank Dave Martin, professor who was the first contact between me and them, and we made it happen. So thank you very much. You were an absolute pleasure to work with. Thank you. Next, I would like to thank Sister Muti Joban, and there's a very good reason for that. Not only is she the mother of Noura Jaban, but she is the husband and wife, Muti Jaban and Sheikh Imam Jaban. They were both here when the first pioneers from Cambodia arrived. And if it wasn't for them, the pioneers and the guidance of Sheikh Jaban and his family, we probably would not have had the Islamic Center here, which is the most diverse faith community here in Puget Sound and probably all Washington. So, thank you. I'd also like to thank two of our musketeers who are here, and they have been standing outside the mosque for the past over 5 years. I think this is the 6th year. Correct me, Robert. So Robert Perez, if you could stand up. So this gentleman comes from a Jewish tradition, and he is out there come rain or snow or sun. And so we finally felt humbled and we built a shed for them. So if you ever come for our first Friday, please gather around the shed that's in front of the entrance of the main mosque so you can connect with them and also have some shade. And the other gentleman who is also here, Kale Moffat, who I guess needs no introduction here in this, but he's in the library here at St. Martin's. Let's see, I'm sure, oh yes, yeah. One disclaimer, I'm not an imam, I'm not a scholar, I'm not even a board member. I retired from the board of the Islamic Center of Olympia this last year, after having served for 7 years in outreach and engagement. But I have a passion for outreach and engagement. So I now have restarted the facilitation of the First Fridays, but I would like to introduce the Vice President of the Islamic Center of Olympia, Brother Azhar Hassan. Please, if you could stand up. So if you have any Muslim students who are giving you problems, you know where to go. Okay, so, wow. First Friday. The main objective of our First Friday operations, and by the way, the Council on American Islamic Relations, at one time, before we shut down for COVID, recognized the efforts that we were doing in outreach and engagement, as we were number 2 in the state as far as our successes in outreach and engagement with the wider community is concerned, and one of the reasons was because of our First Friday effort. We are definitely the only mosque or community in Washington state that's doing something like this, and probably in the nation. We were second, mind you. The first one is MAPS up in Seattle area, in Redmond. But ours is completely volunteer driven. They have paid staff. So that makes a big difference, I think. So as far as volunteer driven efforts is concerned, we are, I think, number 1. So the main objective really is, when we talk about faith and things that we defer, the First Friday is not a time for debates. It's a time where we come together and understand that there are some really strong core values that we all hold in common. No matter whether we are, right-wing, left-wing, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, you name it. There are some core values that we hold in common. I'll just give you a snippet of some. Charity. Anybody's religion here, just raise your hand if your faith does not agree with this, right? Charity, kindness, compassion, truth, to be truthful, right, all the time. ethics, morals, integrity, honesty, respect, maybe even love. But underlying all this, to make this possible, there are two, as far as I can see, right, there are two factors that need to be in place. One is justice, and the other is peace. And we can't have one without the other. It's only when we have these two in place can we have these aspirational goals that we all hold in common. And I say that, let's focus on those 95% of values that we hold in common, rather than the 5% of rituals, languages, backgrounds, experiences, color, language. By the way, I forgot to say, I will be talking English, not one of the 5 other languages. But if you have difficulty in understanding my accent, I can explain in one of the other 5. So the first Friday is really to bring people together, right? And let us recognize, that polarized as we may be, really deeply ingrained in our faith, we hold this 95% of values in common. Let's recognize that and use those differences that we have, right? Let's leverage those, because we all bring in different experiences, different skills, and backgrounds. Let's leverage those to make this a better place. Lastly, thank you. Lastly, I just want to say, we are all one nation, under God, indivisible, with freedom and justice for all. So with that, thank you very much. If you want, this is the flyer out there. They are in various colors, white, yellow, and this color. And although it says it starts at 1 p.m. because we are in winter time, it starts at 12 noon. I hope to see you all at 12 noon at the Islamic Center of Olympia, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So before we conclude the program, we would like to just point to some resources that are available. They are in your program for reference. We would also, before you leave, like for you to take the time to reflect on your experience and time here today. Go ahead and scan the QR code. It's also in your program. We'd love if you can fill it out, let us know, and just take some time to reflect on your experiences. Lastly, before that we leave, I would have a few announcements. So thank you all so much for coming out tonight. We appreciate you all being in this space and creating a supportive and safe environment, truly embodying our school's Benedictine values. Can we give one more round of applause to our speakers and folks from So before we leave, we have a couple of announcements. So please check out the table in the back with more information from the Women of Color Allegiance and the Islamic Center of Olympia. Sign up to learn more about the Islamic Center's open house and grab a few informational pamphlets, and please don't leave without a button. Also, in the spirit of World Hijab Day, we would like to invite all women who are interested to come up to the front of the room at the conclusion of the program to learn how to wear a hijab from our wonderful panelists. The Women of Color Allegiance has provided a limited number of headscarves so we can all learn how to wear the hijab in practice of solidarity and in the spirit of World Hijab Day. I would like to invite our panelists up, and as well as our volunteers, so we can all take a picture together. And yeah, thank you all again, and happy World Hijab Day.